All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2025 VRG Annual General Membership Meeting. I'm your host, live streaming tonight. This is Ian Wisbon, joined by the rest of the VRG board here this year, and I'm going to hand it off to John Wood to kick things off for us for the next hour here.
Thanks, Ian, and thank you all for joining tonight. We've got a pretty action-packed agenda. I'll summarize that real quick. Drew Cullen's going to cover the Secretary's report and provide the results of our board election this year and some membership stats. Scott Jansen, our treasurer, will provide an overview of VRG's financial position. Ian Wisbon will give us a preview of our 2026 schedule with a little look back on Pit Race International. Andrew Stein is going to provide a summary of a brand new event that we have on our calendar in 2026 at New Jersey Motorsports Park. Hopefully you've already heard about that one, but we'll get more details tonight. We have a very good driver development, novice school, advanced clinic program. Denny Austin has really provided a lot of leadership for that program and shaping it into a great one. Greg Haas has agreed to step up and become the chief instructor for that program. So Greg's going to provide us with an overview of that. We have some vehicle eligibility rules updates that Matthew Barber will provide us, and then I'll wrap things up. Before we get started, I just wanted to give a quick little summary of our 2025 season. It was a good one. We had a really nice kickoff to the year with our a full race school with our novice and advanced clinic that led right into the Jefferson 500, our flagship event at Summit Point. Thompson Motorsports Speedway, we had our Vintage Motorsports Festival. Really good time with our partners at VSCCA and HRG. Our event at Watkins Glen is one that hosted Alphas at the Glen this year. Every 5 years, Alphas at the Glen. They joined VRG this year, and we had HRG come join us as well. That event has grown significantly. We had nearly 250 entries, great September weather, really good weekend. Turkey Bowl, we finished the season with. It used to be a sleepy little sort of low-key season-ending event that was literally held on Thanksgiving weekend. We changed the schedule, so it's now, as you know, earlier in November, and that change has resulted in better weather for us, probably a little better schedule availability for the entrants. It's really turned into a big deal event. We had a record this year with 170 entries, so that was a really fun end of year event. We also continued our strong partnership with VDCA with our reciprocal events. Theirs at the Wild Haired VIR, and then their Veterans Weekend event at Road Atlanta. Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix, a long-term partner of VRG's. We had a fantastic race weekend at Pit Race International this year, one of the finest facilities anywhere. Unfortunately, it was the final vintage race event at that facility. Lime Rock Historic Festival, if you've been there, you know that you'll see cars there that you won't see anywhere else. It's a fantastic facility, fantastic turnout on Labor Day weekend. If you race a Formula Ford, or Formula Ford Challenge Series continued with a very strong series this year, both at VRG events and at our partner events. I will simply say, if you have a Formula Ford, or if you're considering getting a Formula Ford to race, the Formula Ford Challenge Series is the place to be. So all in all, 2025 was a strong year for us. Entries were strong, weather was good, the racing was great, and we had a lot of fun in the paddock, both when the track was hot and especially when the track went cold. So with that, I'll turn things over to Drew, and he'll take us through the Secretary's report.
Thanks, John. As many of you know, the board of directors of VRG is made up of 9 directors. They all serve 3-year terms with a limit of 3 terms. And so this year we had 3 open spots. The incumbents, Paul King, John Jeffrey, and myself opted not to seek another term, and the nominating committee presented a slate of 7 really strong candidates. And out of those 7 candidates, the winners were Peter Borman, Craig Seifert, and Kenny Williamson. Congratulations to those guys, and I know we're in great hands going forward. So again, congratulations. Second thing is membership. We had 510 members in 2025. 2024, we had 471. Of those 510 members, 433 actually registered and participated in one of our events, either as a driver or a volunteer or as a crew member, and that's about an 85% participation rate, which is, I think, pretty outstanding. So I think it's great that we're meeting the needs of our members and they're playing along. In 2025, the board, who meets mostly by Zoom, had 6 meetings during the year. We have then expanded meetings where we call them Board Plus, where we include different committee chairs, also event chairman, and so generally we get together a couple times a year to have discussions about how we're doing and how we can move forward. And we had 2 meetings, Zoom meetings with that group. And then in the end of January, beginning of February, we met all together in Reading for 2 days of meetings to kind of plan out that year and make some plans going forward. So that's my report. Thank you. John?
Thanks, Drew. I think we'll go to Scott Jansen for the treasurer report.
Okay. You've heard from me before, and this 2025 report is very similar to prior years, so I'll keep it short. I'm going to give a brief overview of kind of how the club works financially, and then talk a little bit about specific numbers for this year. Income and expenses. This is a brief overview of where the money comes from and where it goes. Income, our 3 primary sources of revenue are race event entry fees. In this year, it was 88% of our total revenue. Membership fees are another 9%, and then the driver's school was the remaining 3%. And total revenue this year was about $558,000 for the year to date. That number probably doesn't really change. By the end of the year, we might have a few membership fees trickling in for the coming year. Our major expenses for the club fall into 2 categories. The first is event costs, and the second is non-event costs. So event costs are the lion's share of our expenses, 94.6% of the total for the year. And the single largest category of event costs by far is track rental fees. In 2025, these ranged from a low of $44,000 to a high of $141,000 for a single race weekend, Thompson being the lowest and Watkins Glen being the highest. This is for the races where VRG was responsible for the track rental, so I'm excluding VIR, Lime Rock, and the now defunct PVGP, where our partners picked up those numbers. Other event costs are insurance, food and catering, towing, Black Flag, ambulance, stewards, volunteer expenses, the YouTube broadcast, event merch, a bunch of other odds and ends. For a given event, these expenses are essentially fixed, regardless of how many entrants we have at a given weekend. We pre-commit to what it's going to cost to run the event, but our income is variable, and that's important, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So non-event expenses are marketing, insurance, equipment such as laptops for timing and scoring, which we had to replace this year, and some other odds and ends. Non-event expenses were about 5.4% of our total expense this year. So our overhead's really low. This is a 100% volunteer run club. There's no salaries, there's no compensation. So only out-of-pocket costs paid to third parties make up our non-event expenses. So this year, how did we do? Well, from a financial perspective, we started 2025 with a cash balance of about $317,000. Knowing we had a healthy balance, we held event fees flat for our events in 2025, no increases over the prior year. And I expect we're going to end this year at about the same cash level or slightly higher. I'll talk a little bit more about how we did for the year later on. The cash level is, kind of a moving target because it depends on when expenses hit and when revenues hit, but it's a good barometer overall. So let's talk about why that cash balance is important, because it probably seems like a lot of money for a nonprofit club. Well, it has two primary functions for the club. The first is to provide working capital, and the second is self-insurance against losses on events. So working capital is necessary for us to pay event costs in advance of receiving the revenues, aka entry fees. We pay large deposits to the tracks shortly after signing the contracts for the coming year, which we're in the process of doing right now. And we pay insurance and other deposits for items such as catering in advance. As an example, we've already started writing track rental deposit checks for 2026 events, and these deposits will total about $80,000 for the next year. So to reiterate, these costs are often paid well in advance of the entry fees coming in, which is why we need the working capital. The number two reason for having cash on hand is protection against event losses. And this is getting to be a little bit of ancient history, but a number of years ago, we had several of our major events that were really totally rained out, including the Jefferson. We still incurred a lot of the event costs, but we had greatly reduced or no revenues, in large part because of our no penalty cancellation policy. So one big storm or storm forecast, depending on the event, can still put a pretty good dent in our reserve, and that's why we maintain it. Rain may keep racers away from the track, but the contracts generally don't provide any relief for the rental obligation, and that's pretty much just the way it is in the business. Okay, so when we look at how we did in 2025, it looks like all of our revenues will cover our costs with a slight gain. We generally look at matching event revenues to event costs, so we try to set entry fees to hopefully break even on each individual event. And in 2025, with entry fees held flat, in total, our events did slightly better than break even though our operating costs were up a bit for 2025. So we're ending the year once again in a good position. Correspondingly, membership fees essentially cover our non-event costs, such as marketing and club insurance and communications. So those two buckets of money kind of offset the two categories of expenses. We're not for profit. Our goal is to cover our costs and be able to maintain our operations into future years. And it looks like we're going to be able to do that for the coming year. So with that, I'll turn the podium over to Ian.
Thanks, Scott. I think everybody can hear me now since Zoom focused on me. So I'm going to talk a bit about next year's calendar. I'm also going to touch base just a little bit on pit race. As John mentioned at the top of the meeting here, for those that don't know, Pittsburgh International Race Complex was sold to new ownership and ceased operations as a racing venue just last month. Took a lot of the Pittsburgh racing community by surprise, and I'm sure most of the Eastern Seaboard, as it was probably one of the top facilities, certainly on this half of the country, if not in all of North America. Built originally as Beaver Run in the year 2002, Pittsburgh Vintage Grand Prix picked it up as a date in 2004, and then Mike Conley, longtime Steel Cities Region SCCA, extended an invitation to the VRG, who at that point was a very young organization, just a year old, to partner with them in 2005 to assist on the event there at Beaver Run, and then over many years at Beaver Run, eventually becoming Pit Race or Pittsburgh International Race Complex. We saw it expanded and improved year over year to what was at least my favorite facility to visit, not only because it's literally in our backyard and about 45 minutes drive away, but I don't know that I've had a better shower at the racetrack than I have at Pit Race. So those will be sorely missed. On a personal note, our chief tech inspector, Scott Buriak, and I went to one of those first races. I had to have been 2005, and took a fortuitous 2004, took a fortuitous ride with Steve Limbert and his Porsche which kind of set Scott down the road into working on old Porsches. And he drugged me along, and we've kind of wound up now at the place we are now in the VRG, fully invested in supporting and volunteering with this fantastic club. So if it wasn't for that racetrack, I'm sure we'd have gotten here eventually, but that allowed it to happen much, much sooner. So do yourself a favor, hug your local racetrack, get involved at the track, build bridges with the community that surrounds the track, work with the communities around them to make it a good thing. And on that note, we'll look forward into 2026 here. Let me pull up my notes. We're going to kick off the year, as we always do, in March with our partners and friends down at the VDCA with the Wild Hair at VIR. That's March 27th through the 29th. Following that up is our first of 2 new events on the calendar for 2026 out at Pocono Raceway, the Tricky Triangle. April 18th in 2026, we're partnering with our friends at VSCCA, working with Quibus to get some things squared away, and I believe Stefan Vappa is going to be the event chair for that in partnership with us here at VRG. We're going to be running Pocono Southeast for a one-day test and tune so we can knock the clag off the tires and get ready for a long year of racing there in Pocono. We get jump ahead to May. We're going to have our VRG Racing School May 12th to the 14th. Always well subscribed. Registration is always a popular question here. When's that going to open? I can't tell you right now. Not sure if Greg Haas is going to give any hints away, but certainly keep your eyes open for when school opens, and you can get your friends and family registered to come race with us. That's immediately followed that same weekend by the Jefferson 500, everybody's favorite event at Summit Point. We jump ahead to June up to Thompson with Vintage Motorsports Festival 13 at Thompson Speedway. I should also note both the Summit Point and Thompson events are going to be PDEC events, and Summit Point is also a logbook issuing event. So if you need a logbook, get in touch and we can take care of that at Summit Point, and then PDEC's both at Summit Point and Thompson. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because Andrew's going to tell us a whole lot more, but July 10th to the 12th, so the weekend that we would have had PVGP at Pit Race, we have replaced that with an event at New Jersey Motorsports Park on Lightning. So we're all very much looking forward to going back to New Jersey with what's hopefully some fantastic weather and racing. September, we're going to go back to Lime Rock for Historic Festival 44, which has proven to be a quite successful event in recent years. I had the opportunity to go a couple of years ago. The weather was fantastic. If you can't go racing, at least go see some awesome cars and then spectate and have some wine and cheese on Sunday with more racing on Monday. Then we'll bring it back to Watkins Glen, end of September there. Another logbook issuing event and PDEC event for us there at the Glen. We had exceptional weather this year and Alphas at the Glen, and looking forward to another fantastic year at Watkins Glen. Then we're going to partner with our friends at VDCA again at Road Atlanta, November 7th through the 8th, the Veterans Day Historics at Road Atlanta. And then we're going to wrap it up once more at Summit Point with our all-time favorite VRG Turkey Bowl to end the year on. And we'll see what we do this year with the chili competition. Mr. Jeff Downing came in strong off the bat with a fantastic chili this year I had the pleasure of tasting. We'll see if he repeats. That's our calendar on the real racetrack. At the end, when we do some member questions, I am going to speak a little bit about the VRG VRL, the Virtual Racer League, and what their schedule looks like. And with that, I think my segment of the agenda is done, and I will hand off to Andrew Stein to tell us about New Jersey.
Thank you, Ian. So I put up a little page behind me, a little background. It's going to be, our race at New Jersey is going to be called the Glasstown Vintage Speed Fest. If you're not familiar with the area, Millville is known as Glasstown for its artisan glassmaking. They've been known like that for very many years. It's a rich area in history. We also have the local Millville Airport where they trained P-47 pilots in World War II. It was the first and only fighter training facility. But back to the race. I'm going to have a co-chair with Ron Beard, and we're going to have our run groups are going to be pretty standard compared to what we're used to. We will have 6 run groups, our usual small bore, medium bore, large bore, and Formula Ford. We'll also have, at the request of Kenny Williamson, he suggested a sports racer group. So he's in charge of getting entries for that. And it should be a great group. I think that sports racers are one of the most exciting classes to watch. So if we can get some 50s, 60s, and early 70s sport racers out there, that'd be great. We're also looking at a modern run group, not dissimilar to what has been done at Turkey Bowl without the legends. We're still working on exactly who's going to be eligible for that. Uh, and we're also inviting HRG to the race. They will have their own feature and otherwise will be incorporated in the normal VRG run groups. So it's a pretty conventional event that way. We're looking at probably about 3 hours of track time over the 3 days. So plenty of time for everybody on the track. New Jersey is a rather interesting place though, with the state police, because they require that everyone have 20/20 helmets. So we're going to make sure that that's available, and if there are deals on those 20/20 helmets, we'll post them for you so you can get prepared. And also New Jersey wants everybody to have red fuel cans. That's the deal in Jersey. Aside from that, what's going to make the event different, I think, is that it's a midsummer event. So we have plenty of daylight to use. And at the close of racing on Saturday, we're going to have a bluegrass band, which Ron Beard, our own Ron Beard, is part of. So we'll have music, and hopefully we can get some food and drink to go along with it. We really want to make this a fun summer event, off track as well as on track. It's going to be in the middle of July, so it's a little bit warm there, but we'll have ice cream for everybody. That's already budgeted for. So it should be a good time. I don't really have anything else to cover with it.
Yep.
Look forward to seeing you July 10 to 12.
Yep. Thanks, Andrews.
John?
Everybody else stay tuned for more details as we pull this new event together. I think we're all looking forward to it. With that, why don't we go to Greg Haas, who has agreed to take over leadership for our driver development program. Greg?
Yes, greetings, everyone. First of all, Denny has done a great job of getting us a fantastic stepping off point, as it were, for this next season. And we're this year, 2025, we had 27 students successfully taking the school, 3 groups, small bore, mid, big bore, and Formula Sports racers were there. We had 23 novice students and 4 advanced students. We did a survey of the event, and we received high marks, with 16 of the students replying to the questionnaire. We have 11 students who've completed their PDEC in 2025 and are fully licensed. Yay for them. We've got 30 current active PDECs, and some of them are likely to be aged out simply because they've been around for a while, but we're still going to be working on getting strong growth numbers. We're combining the novice and advanced in one big group. So we're operating as a full school, and we had solid financial result. The income was $18,000 and $18,070. Expenses were $16,921. Had a lot of folks helping. We need 40 people to make this school happen. So as you go forward, think about maybe getting involved with the school. Once again, Denny's vision is going to carry forward going into the 2026 school. The school is going to be May 12th through 14th. Scott Kruger is going to be the events chair. I'll be the chief instructor for the event, and we're going to continue with the mixed advanced and novice school. We don't know how Peter's going to be involved, but Peter Crest probably will be involved again this year. We're essentially going to keep the same structure and strategy and just do our best to refine that, make it better. We're still looking for a few more instructors, so talk to myself or Scott. And if you're interested in coming to the school, also talk to one of us. And we're keeping a rolling list of interested drivers so that when we do open registration sometime in the next month, we will be reaching out and letting everyone know. So there we go.
Sounds good, Greg. Thank you. And why don't we go over to Matthew for a little update on vehicle eligibility.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being on the call, and thank you, John. I was asked to give everybody an update on vehicle eligibility changes or rule changes. So just a little bit of background. Our original vehicle eligibility and tire rules were put in place when the club was founded more than 20 years ago. And we have gone through a few different iterations of refinement and changes thus far. Our rulemaking process is as follows. We identify either an issue or a proposal is brought to the Vehicle Eligibility Committee. The committee then reviews that proposal on its merits as well as on the interests of the club to see if we are moving the sort of wants and desires of the club forward. Then they will weigh in on that and present it to the board. The board has a series of rounds of discussion, and then we would go to a vote. If the issue or proposal is implemented, then the rule change is published and it's pushed out to the club. So that's kind of the process. The eligibility committee is as follows. Currently, it's Mike Lawton who is the chair, Jim Karamanis, Keith Lawrence, Graham Long, Andrew Moore, John Clerk, Mark Palmer, and Butch O'Connell. So as you can see, the committee is comprised of some really seasoned racers and some seasoned veterans in the VRG community. This year, there were several changes to the rules with a few goals that I think are worth bringing to your attention. First and foremost, we really want to better align our published vehicle eligibility rules with the cars that are racing with us currently. There are a lot of cars who are coming to race with us that are just slightly either out of spec of our rules. And so we're bringing those rules together just so that we can encapsulate those people and they feel they have a good place to race. The second thing is we're hoping to simplify the rules. This is just to avoid general confusion. We get a lot of calls that come into the committee. Can I race with you guys? This is my issue, and we're trying to rectify that. The third thing that we're really trying to do with our changes this year is just recognize that vintage racing is a continuously evolving thing. Cars that were out of spec maybe in 1993, for instance, have been brought into spec. What is vintage is constantly changing as just time moves on. In addition, parts are becoming either more or less available and safety measures are improving. So we're trying to update the rules to capture this. So it is worth noting that since we don't reward finishing position, we're allowing changes to keep racers safe and facilitate reliability. And then lastly, so our engineering has evolved, so too are our rules to create a competitive and safe place for all to race. That said, we still retain the right for event chairs to regroup either highly modified or engineered cars to run with either faster run groups. So last thing is we've made some changes to the tire rules to better align the rules with other vintage racing organizations. We have a lot of folks that run with either VDCA and ourselves and other groups, and there's been some confusion cross organization of this car is eligible in this one, it may not be eligible in that. So we're trying to have some cohesion to that to lessen the strain on our racers. So that's what I've got.
Thanks, Matt. We've gone through most of the agenda. We have some time at the end for Q&A. We have a couple questions that came in, but before we get to Q&A, I just wanted to make a few closing remarks. VRG has term limits for its board positions, and my role as president is limited to a 3-year term, and that 3-year term comes to an end in the end of this month. So I'll be done with the presidency, but I'll still be on the board. I'll be around for a while, but I just want to make a couple of comments and remarks. When I reflect back and think about when I first started racing with VRG, I just paid my money, showed up and raced, and didn't really think about, what it took to put on an event and organize things. It was great. I just had a good time. Didn't think much about it. And then I started to meet people and started to eventually raise my hand and say, yeah, I'll help out. And then I got elected to the board and somehow became president. But when I first started as the president, the club was in really good shape. It almost seemed like it was on autopilot. Like it didn't really seem like that big a deal. And it felt to me like my real job was to make sure nothing gets screwed up too badly. But what I learned quickly and what other people, learned quickly is there's a lot that goes on behind the curtain to keep this club, volunteer-based club, clicking. And, autopilot doesn't exist. The people run this club. Issues come up, decisions need to be made on a, sometimes daily basis. We have, I think, really good structure with people that lead different committees or, subgroups within the club. And a lot of those people were in the kind of the same role when I started as the president. And since then, there's been a lot of change. And I just want to kind of recognize some of the key people that have stepped forward to kind of fill the void when there has been a change. Betsy Wisbin's doing a good job with membership. Thanks, Betsy. Scott Buriak is leading our tech inspection team. Kenny Williamson has taken over our driver committee process. We have a lot of people helping Kenny on driver committee, so that's nice to see. I mentioned earlier the really nice job Denny Austin had done in terms of shaping the driver development program in the school. Scott Kruger stepped forward to help Denny out with the event organization and logistics aspect. And now Greg Haas has stepped forward to take over for Denny as chief instructor. For a long, long time, Steve and Tracy kind of took care of everything race control. We didn't really have to worry about it. In the last 2 years, we have kind of a new set of people. And I just want to recognize the hard work that Andrew Stein and Bernard Bradpiece have done to kind of put the operating protocols together. Storm Field, Eric Russell, Kevin Richards have stepped forward to, be operating stewards. They lean on and receive guidance from our senior operating steward team of Butch O'Connor, Bob Albert, Kyle Colby, help from Lee Laserchak. Jim Graziano has taken over our Black Flag stewardship role, so that's been great. But I want to just share a piece of advice that Mac McCormick gave me when I was talking to him early on about the idea of becoming president. He just said, your event chairs are mission critical. And I've learned how mission critical they really are. There are unsung heroes. On behalf of the entire membership, I want to thank Jim Karamanis, Cal Trumbo, Ralph Padgington for what they do at the Jeff, Mark Gonzalez, John Jeffrey at Thompson, Paul King in our interface at Lime Rock, Mike Lawton and Matthew Barber for Watkins Glen, Jim, Cal, and Ralph are getting a little bit of relief. So I want to thank Todd Angel and Scott Kruger for stepping forward to take over the EC Reigns Turkey Bowl. I also want to thank the board, everything the board does for this club. Paul King, Drew Cullen, and John Jeffrey, they're rolling off the board at the end of the month, but I want to thank them for their wisdom and contributions that have been highly valued. Welcome to Peter Borman, Craig Seifert, and Kenny Williamson to the board. Looking forward to working with you guys even more closely. And while it's not really a personnel change, I want to just thank Rob Brownlee Tomaso and Bill Stoller for putting that newsletter together. In my view, there is no finer newsletter than the VRG. So Rob and Bill, thanks for everything you do there. What makes VRG race events so special is the fun we have in the paddock. As they say, we come for the cars, but stay for the people. And this is especially true for VRG. So looking forward to seeing everybody at the racetrack in the spring. But with that, let's go to our Q&A.
Thanks, John. Okay, let's see. I've been feverishly collating notes here as we've been talking and checking email in a couple of places. Oh, wait, hang on. We just got another one in here. Let me chew on that one while we get to the other ones. Plus, I also said earlier that I was going to give a plug to the VRG VRL. Let's hit the questions that I have, because I'm sure folks are wanting to hear their questions and the answers to that. Then I'll touch base on the VRL, and then if there's another question that comes in, I'll wrap that one up. So it looks like first up here, John, we have an email from a Corey Hunter, who is a racer, a 40-year-old racer. Big ups to fellow 40-somethings racers. It's good to see some relatively younger blood in the club, Corey, so thanks for writing in. Let's see. He looks asking about how to bring former SCCA prod cars that perhaps are prepped a little differently than we do here at VRG and our vintage racing, but he would like to see some of those in the paddock, and is volunteering to kind of lead the charge here to go shake some of these former SCCA prod cars and get them out on track. So I think in summary, John, how to go about doing something like that, bringing former SCCA prod cars to the VRG?
I know we're not opposed to that. I think we'd like to see it. I think the questions about eligibility and car prep are good questions. My recommendation is that Corey connect with our vehicle eligibility committee. Mike Lawton leads that committee. Matthew listed all the other members on the committee, but it's probably best to get Corey and Mike connected, and they can put a game plan together on how to evaluate those cars. I think it's pretty difficult to just, give a blanket, yeah, they're all welcome, or no, none of them can come, because they're probably all prepared a little bit differently from one another. So it'd probably be best to have some clarity on the key things to look for in terms of eligibility. But getting Corey and Mike together is probably the right next step.
Yeah, and just to dovetail on that, and to Corey, I did have a conversation with a pretty good shoe and an H-Prod bug guy by the name of Ray Stone, who had similar questions about bringing some of those old prod cars out. So That's some pretty esteemed company. So great minds think alike, it seems like. Next question we have here, John. This one comes from Henry Fry, who I believe we know to be a pretty quick shoe in a TR6. Henry actually writing in regards to the rules changes that we've made here in 2025. Let's see. Questions about rules and eligibility put in place 2025. Why wasn't the membership surveyed? And if there are changes or modifications to the changes that have been made, how would one go about affecting some change there, at least bringing those to the attention of the club?
A couple things. First, just a point of clarity. Henry's pretty hot shoe in his TR250 and his TR3.
Sorry.
That's okay. But, I think the first part of Henry's question was, why wasn't the membership surveyed for these rule changes? I think that if we were to survey the membership, there's going to be split views, and I think it's one of these classic examples of hard to, get everybody on the same page. But I want to go back to what Matthew addressed with his vehicle eligibility update. We've got a very strong vehicle eligibility committee, that has a club founder on the committee, 3 former presidents, 3 additional former board members, and a couple of other highly respected folks as well. So I think there's a body of expertise there that know how to put an event on, see lots of different cars roll through our events, and have a pretty good sense for vintage racing. That's not to say that the rules that we implemented in 2025 cannot be refined further. As Matthew said, we've made refinements several times over the years. So my recommendation is that if there's an issue or a couple of, particular issues that are the hot buttons for anything that we've done with the rules changes in 2025, a proposal for, refinement modification can certainly be made. And the best way to do that is to get it in front of the Vehicle Eligibility Committee. You could send, if you want to send that by email, you can send it to me or Ian. We'll forward it on to that Vehicle Eligibility Committee, and we'll make sure that, I'm sure that the Vehicle Eligibility Committee will consider it seriously.
Thanks, John. And just for those listening that would like to get in touch with us, when John says email John or I, we are john@vrgonline.org or ian@vrgonline.org. You can also use asktheboard@vrgonline.org. Just as you've submitted questions this evening, that'll get to us and we can forward that on to the relevant folks. Couple more here for you, John. We've got one from a Russ Rosenberg. Russ asking essentially why VRG prefers to grid by fastest lap of the weekend as opposed to finishing order.
Yeah, I think I know through my involvement with the Vintage Motorsports Council, that question has come up, and it just seems like each club has their own preferred method. For VRG, we have a long history of setting our race grids according to the fastest lap of the weekend. We have found, and we believe that that's results in a safer way to get the race started. And that way you have the front runners up front, the mid-pack folks in the mid-pack, et cetera. A scenario that's not hypothetical, it's real, is when you have one of the fast guys up front that for whatever reason doesn't finish a race. They come in early for whatever reason. And then for the next race, if we were to grid based on finishing position, we'd have one or more of the, so-called front runners gridded at the back, and they'd be working their way up. On the one hand, you'd say, hey, this is vintage racing. That's part of the fun. On the other hand, we just have experience that tells us that it's probably safer, to have the race grids set by fastest lap of the weekend. So that's why we do what we do.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Just a couple more here. Let's see. Jeff Bear writes in asking about Snell 2015 helmets in or out for the 2026 season, asking for a friend. John, I believe, historically we've allowed 1 year extra on the helmets due to lack of availability in the next calendar year. But I think we want to call out New Jersey Motorsports here as perhaps an exception for that one.
Yeah, I think that's all right. Historically, we've always added an extra year. So, for VRG events other than New Jersey, a 2015 rated helmet would be acceptable. The reason we've done that is because there have been times when the newer helmets are certified late, or they're manufactured late, or they're distributed late, and they're just not available early enough in the season. That's not the case that I can see this year. I think there's a lot of availability for the 2025 helmets now, but we're still going to, our rules allow for 1 extra year. So for VRG events other than New Jersey, the 2015 helmets are going to be okay. If you plan to race at New Jersey, there's nothing we can do about this. There's a set of New Jersey state regulations, that govern all forms of racing, and the track informed all of its partners for 2026 that the helmets must be 2020 or newer. But as I said, there looks to be a lot of availability for the 2025 helmets. And what I've seen is that one of the most common, suppliers with a red, white, and blue logo is that the price points for the 2025 helmets, are as low as like around $269 up to thousands of dollars, depending upon the features that you want for your helmet, but the availability seems to be there.
All right, thank you, John. A couple more questions here. We've got one from Bob Anderson, a very quick Swede, asking a question. I think perhaps, Kenny, this one's aimed at you, specifically towards the Sports Racer Group for New Jersey. Just a little bit of an expansion on your vision. Bob wants to know what your vision is for the Sports Racer Group at New Jersey, for the rest of the folks here listening.
Good evening, guys. Kenny Williamson. The vision for the Sports Racer Group is to hopefully be able to have late 50s specials, 1960s and early 1970s sports racers, enough of those to be able to fill out a grid. Nothing against the S2s, but they're still kind of we're a square peg going in a round hole, but the sports racers are a smaller square peg. So if we're able to fill out the grid with, say, 15, 18, 20, sports racers of the Formula F100 like mine, or a Legrand like, Scott Jantz or Scott's, Lotus 23s, Elva Mark 7s, Bob's Vitesse Racer, anything like that. We're going to try to put them in there. A vision eventually is, if we can get enough, we can actually even break them down into separate classes inside of the group also, so not just have them all be B sports racers or F modifieds. We hopefully will be able to, judge them by engine size, maybe a 2-liter class and a 1600 class and a 1300 class and all that. And even some V8s, because we'll probably have some V8, say a Divin special, that sort of thing show up. So that's what we're envisioning. But if we aren't, or if we aren't able to get that much, at least for New Jersey this time, we probably will have some S2s, but the S2s will be, I hate to use the term invitation only, but they will be highly vetted to make sure that they will race with the vintage spirit and race under the VRG rules. So hopefully that answers the question for Bob.
Excellent. Thank you, Kenny. Let's see. We had 2 in chat. One of these seems to perhaps be, perhaps in jest a little bit. Standing starts for the Formula Ford group, like Formula One. I don't know how well that one would go over. And then we have one from a bit of a legend at Summit Point, Graham Taylor. Everybody knows him as Pace Car and Grid. He says, since there was such a great entry list at Turkey Bowl, has there been any discussion and or feedback on rearranging groups? More groups, less track time, anything of that sort? He just says it would be awesome if the entry list continued to grow. I think, John, we'd agree that if we had another Turkey Bowl like we had this year, that's a good problem to have. And Graham's right there with us at Grid, and I'm sure he can give us a few pointers.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think Graham's perspectives are always good. Todd and Scott are going to take over, for that event, and they don't live too far away, so maybe they can get together with Graham and kick some of those ideas around.
Excellent. And I think the last thing that I wanted to touch base on, unless another question comes in here in the last 10 minutes via chat or email, I was asked, technically this qualifies because it came in via email from Stefan Vappa, but we also got it in chat. So the VRG, VRL, the Virtual Racer League, is our online iRacing group here. So if you're not getting any racing in over the winter months, obviously because it's snowing and it's cold and we can't go to the racetrack, they're starting up a new season, just started last week at VIR. I'll give a quick plug here, rundown for the season. So in iRacing, they're running the Skip Barber 2000, basically a Formula Ford. This week's going to be at the Daytona Road Course. Then they're going to hit Summit Point, Lime Rock, Watkins Glen Butte, Mosport, Sebring, and then Mount Panorama or Bathurst. If you're interested in getting into some virtual racing, some sim racing, you don't need a lot, and the VRL folks would be more than happy to, get you in the virtual hot seat. You can contact Jim Graziano, everybody's favorite Black Flag steward. His email address, jimmy-back@hotmail.com. That's JIMMY-BACK, @hotmail.com. I'll put that in the chat. and get in touch and do some virtual racing throughout the winter season and keep those muscles reactive and fresh. And I think that's about it for our questions, both in email and in chat. So, John, I guess in closing, do you have any other additional thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns?
I don't. Thanks for joining us tonight. And as I said earlier, look forward to seeing everybody in the paddock in the spring.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We're going to get out of here. I've been your host, Ian Wisman, here again. It's been a year since I last did this. It seemed to go pretty flawless. We appreciate all your thoughts, comments, questions. Send anything that you didn't get a chance to asktheboard@vrgonline.org. Reach out to John or myself or anybody else you see here on the board when you see us. Everybody have a great holiday season, and we'll catch you when the ground starts to thaw and we're back at the racetrack. Thanks, everybody.